excited to do this. I started this YouTube channel last year and just never really got around to doing it. So it's new year. We're gonna finally do this. I just want to get on here and talk about kind of my favorite things that I enjoy, just kind of in web development, and just pass along some useful information. I've learned so much from YouTube. I feel like it's high time I kind of pass some of it along. So today, I'm going to try to keep this video super short. I don't want to bog everybody down with info here, but I want to talk about Yjs and a library to work with Yjs called Valtio-Yjs, which is, they just moved it into alpha. It's my favorite thing I like to play around with, and it's I don't know, just I think something really interesting and something worth talking about. So essentially, Yjs creates CRDT connections for real-time shared state. And what we're going to talk about today is how it uses what's called WebRTC to create a mesh of WebRTC connections. So it's essentially, you get shared state without a database involved or a server. It's really just browsers all kind of connecting and meshing together. And I figure I'll try to show you guys how it works with a kind of quick example, and I'll show you some of the larger examples of what I've built with it. But we're gonna just show like the fundamentals of how to set it up, what it does. So to be super quick about the basic example, I lifted these right out of the presentation from the guy who invented Yjs. But the problem that he really spent a lot of time solving, and you gotta love open source software because I couldn't do this, but now we get to leverage it, right? Is he solved automatic conflict resolution. So essentially, if I make an insertion and somebody else makes an insertion, and this is all about collaborative editing. So the goal is collaborative applications. You think about just with the pandemic now, all these co-working things, right? If you want to have a shared whiteboard, a shared text editor like Google Docs or Google Sheets, maybe. I'll show you some fun stuff I've been doing with Three.js using this stuff. But everyone on any browser can see the global state. They see the changes in real time, and the number one thing they had to fix was automatic conflict resolution. So essentially, if I upload something at the exact same time as somebody else, we both get the updates with no merge errors, no nothing. So this is like an example of how that works, and a good comparison is to compare this to kind of what Git does with manual conflict resolution, right? So in Git, if I make an edit, somebody else makes an edit, we got to look at it and figure this out. What Yjs does so just cleanly, and it's awesome, it's really basically magic, is it handles all of that for you. It keeps a log of who edited what. It's just really awesome. So so to keep this really quick, kind of the mission for Yjs was to be network agnostic, support all text editors. We're really not going to get into like the text editor implementation. I just want to talk about WebRTC in this video. But again, enable collaboration in all applications, solve the hard problems for collaborative editing, like shared undo, redo, awareness. We'll talk about how the awareness works. That was kind of tough for me to figure out, but once I figured it out, it's actually not that hard. Versioning, change tracking. We won't really get into offline editing. This is really just going to be about WebRTC. But I just want to give like a good fundamental starter so you can do your own research, but also just know how to build an application when the time comes. So what I'm gonna do here is show. I just have a basic create. All right, I'm back. I have a basic create React app up over here, and what I just realized is I need to move it to this side so I can see it and not cover my face. All right, here we are. So the short version is I'm gonna go right into my node, my package JSON here. All right, so obviously all the basic create React stuff. I'm assuming you know how to do a create React app and you have some kind of basic React knowledge, right? So the libraries we're really going to talk about are Yjs, of course, something called WebRTC, which is going to be how we create these WebRTC connections so our browsers can talk to each other. Valtio, which is a proxy state library, and that is going to all get connected with this thing. They just moved into alpha. It's beautiful. I'm going to show you the implementation. It's pretty cool and it's pretty easy to understand. It's called Valtio-Yjs. So in your library to do all this, we're going to hit a little npm install, and then you're just going to type all of these in: Valtio-Yjs, YJS, and then YWebRTC. And I already have these in here, but you just press enter, right, to get all this stuff installed. You should see it updated in your package JSON. Once you get that done, you're good to go. Again, assuming you did create React app. And yeah, this is kind of an upper level tutorial, so I'm assuming you know how to do all that. So right now in my app.js, I don't have anything. It's literally just an H1 that says connected. I'm gonna run npm start here and try to get this connected. I'm starting the server. Cool. Shrink this, put it here. So boom, it's connected. Shrink this a little more. Put that over there. Scoot it. All right, here we go. So again, we're not gonna do a lot here. The goal is just gonna be to set this up, show you guys kind of the process of setting up very fundamentally what you do, and then you guys can kind of go from there and create kind of whatever you want to do. And then hopefully if I have time, I'll try to show a quick example of some of the things I've built with it. So the number one thing to understand with this is that the only true challenge of the implementation I've found, not really the only, but the main thing is just making sure you get the import statements right. There's a lot of config you have to do early in your application to do that, and we're gonna knock that out and get it done. So just do some quick comments. You know, comments are great. We need to do that. We need to import YJS, right? We're gonna need to, all right, so we'll just say like our main imports. So we'll say like main imports, YJS, Valtio, Valtio-Yjs, YWebRTC. You know, there's some specific things we got to pull out of there. Yeah, and then we have to kind of use all that stuff. Use all our imports for config. Okay, so this is just the start, and honestly, if you can knock out this part, the rest of it is really just kind of fun to play with. And what I like is the syntax is just really cool, you know. So let's get into it. So the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna import basically everything from YJS. So we're gonna just import this. The common syntax is to just say Y there, and we're gonna do that from YJS. Boom, you know, simple import statement. Next thing we're gonna have to get, let me put a little bit of space here, is a function called bind proxy. Wow, I put a space there. Bind proxy and YMap, and we are gonna get that from Valtio-Yjs, right? And that is really the magical thing that they just moved into alpha that is gonna allow for us to do some really cool stuff. So we're gonna do that, if I can spell it correctly. There we go. Next, we are going to need our WebRTC provider, right? And that's what's going to allow us to kind of make this connection peer-to-peer. I may do a video just kind of explaining how WebRTC works, but all you really need to understand is if you ever worked with like Firebase or something, right? I mean, we're using the database and it's pretty real time, but it still has to go talk to Firebase on whatever server Google set up and come back to you, right? Let me type WebRTC real fast. This is essentially creating our shared state through a mesh of browser connections. It's a peer-to-peer handshake, and it's really cool. So lastly, we're gonna grab a bunch of stuff from a Valtio library, which is kind of what's gonna allow us to do all this stuff. So it's proxy state, so we're gonna need our proxy. That's where we're gonna put our state. We're gonna get a function called subscribe, which I may get into, I may not. What we're actually gonna use is this function called use snapshot. And if you ever worked with like a library like Firebase or something, you know kind of sort of how this works. Essentially what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the proxy state over here to store our variable, and the kind of way we do this is we use snapshot to read the value, and then we write the values to our proxy state. So again, I'm gonna show you how this works, but trying to be thorough in the start. So boom, we got that done. You know, this is how we're gonna do this. This is kind of our basic bread and butter import statements to, you know, get the party started. So from here, we need to kind of use all our imports to set up our initial configuration that we can use in our application. So the first thing we need to do is create something called a YDoc, and a YDoc is where we're going to store all of our awesome shared state that everybody can talk to. And that's pretty simple. We're just going to create a new y.doc because we imported all of YJS as just y. From there, we're going to create something called a Y map. Now, YJS has a bunch of different forms of state. I'm really used to using like Firebase for this kind of database things, and I love their kind of map setup because what I think is cool is you could use an array here. There's a bunch of different data types, but the map is cool because it's essentially an object. And if you know, I mean, I'm assuming you know enough about JavaScript to know how objects work. You can store pretty much any data type in an object, and it's just a little more indexed. So, you know, if you want to look into other ways to do it, there's other ways to do it. But for me personally, most of the stuff I'm doing, I'm just making a Y map. So we're going to go YDoc. We're going to look into that YDoc we just created, and we're going to grab the map. We're just going to call it map. Boom. So now we have access to our map. And then what we need to do is create our WebRTC thing. So we got the provider. Again, we don't have to set any of this stuff up. I'm just gonna say const provider is equal to new WebRTC provider, right? We're gonna give this a name, and the short version for how this works is, can we pull this up here? So you're gonna give it if you can look up here, I don't wanna, okay, here it is. So new WebRTC provider, right? It takes a room name, which is a string, and then the doc, and then there's some config stuff we can do, but I'm keeping this as simple as possible. I really don't want to do like 30-minute videos. Like, really want to just get to the point. This may be 30 minutes anyway, but I'm gonna try to keep this as short as possible. So again, the main things we need here are a room name and the document we're gonna use, and we just instantiated our document. So we're just gonna call our room name test. Eventually, if you want to have multiple rooms, right, and shared state in your various rooms, if you're having like lobbies or, you know, various documents, we'll get into that stuff, I guess. Like, you're just going to change, you create a variable here and you just swap the variable out for, you know, what you're doing. So we can get into that, right? And then we're going to just take our YDoc and we're going to use that as our second argument, and boom, now we have a provider like completely set up, all we need. So for this, I'm going to pretend this is like a chat application, but really I'm just going to show the functionality. Like, my goal here is to push something into the state, and then I'm going to open another browser tab to simulate a second user and just show that when we move state around, right, it's going to update simultaneously in all the browsers. Pretty magical, you know. But for right now, I'm just going to call this chat store like we were doing a chat application. You can do anything there. Again, this is really like your store. You know, this is what's important. So this is the main thing. We imported our proxy from Valtio up here. Valtio allows us to create a proxy state so we can access this variable, and it just works. It's just, we're going to edit this variable, and it's going to get edited for everybody, and we're going to read it using this use snapshot function they give us. But so this is our initial state. I'm just going to use an empty object. Say you were doing like a chess game maybe, or some kind of something with a board, right? And you had a board state to maintain, right? Whatever your initial board state would be, right? Like whatever the starting state of the chessboard would be, right? You would probably put that in this object. Like, I don't know. Like, I think chess is like A5 or something, right? And then you put like the king that, you know what I mean? You do something like that. That's your initial state. For right now, for how we're going to do this, we're just going to keep that state empty. And all we've done is, and now we've instantiated our proxy. So the last thing we have to do to make our proxy work with our provider and our Y map is we're going to use a function that we imported called bind proxy and if I can spell, and Y map. Y map. There we go. Did I do that right? I did do that right. So this function takes two arguments as well. We're going to take our proxy state, which we call chat store. You know what, to make this more clear, I'm just going to call this store. Okay, so it's literally like, you can make it a store of anything you want, but we're just going to call it store because that's what it is. It's where we're storing our global state, and we have to bind it to the Y map we instantiated. So now everything is actually connected. This is the hardest part, is doing this kind of config here. But if you set up all of this, now we literally, I'm going to show you, have like in this many lines of code, we have completely set up universal shared state cross browser instantaneously. And I think it supports up to like 20 people in a room, 30 connections. It supposedly supports an infinite amount, but you can look into the docs. You're not supposed to do that many simultaneously, but you can do a lot, and it's pretty cool. So yeah, let's get into it, right? So what we need to do in here is instantiate a little bit of state. Oh, is that how I'm doing this? That is how I'm doing this. So I'm gonna make a button that's just gonna update our state, right? And it's just gonna be button, set button, use state. I think it's gonna make it null to begin with. Or no, I'm sorry, we're gonna make it like, we're gonna make it empty because we're gonna create a text input. And then we're gonna push the text input, the value of the text input, we're gonna push it into our global state, and it's gonna update everywhere. And again, right, we've already done the hard part. Now I'm just gonna do some like boilerplate React to make it happen. The last thing we're gonna do is make our get our snapshot so we can read this. So I'm just gonna call it snap. Again, you can call it whatever you want. We're gonna use that use snapshot hook that we imported, right? And it creates a local snapshot that catches changes, so it gets instant updates, which is awesome. And what's really cool about use snapshot too is when you tie it to your render cycle, it doesn't, it's like perfect. It only re-renders your component if the state changes that's tied to whatever you're doing. I'll show you when we do it, but it's pretty cool. So what we have to do is take our store that we instantiated, just throw it in there because it's just reading a snapshot. So now it's going to read a snapshot from our proxy state. So again, what you do is you mutate the store state. This is what we're going to mutate, right? And then we're going to read it using the snapshot. And that's, you know, I mean, again, if you use Firebase or something, you're used to this kind of pattern here. So yeah, there's that. And I'm trying my hardest not to take forever. So the next thing we're going to do, use effect here to alert us when our state changes, so we can get a little alert, right? And we're going to tie that to the snap, and we're just going to say something like console.log the snap when it happens. So now, I mean, I hope this is fairly readable. You know, when the snapshot happens, you know, our use effect is going to trigger whenever the state changes now, and we'll be able to see the updates. And the goal is, if we have two browsers up simulating two different people using our application, one edit is instantly going to update to this use effect in the other person's app that they're using in their browser, because the browsers are doing a peer-to-peer handshake. It's really cool. So yeah, now all we got to do is just make ourselves a little input, you know? I mean, we all know how to make a text input, right? If you don't know about e.target.value, you know, you gotta check it out. So, you know, this is stock React right here. You know, type equals text, value equals button, and on change. We all know that. We all know what happens on change here, right? Oh, did I do that wrong? I did that wrong. See, I'm talking all this trash. There we go. All right, on change, you know, we got our change event, and we are going to set the button equal to e.target.value, everybody's favorite thing. And if you can see here, now our little thing happened. We have our little text input. I'm not going to style this. I really just want to just keep this boilerplate simple. I want to show you just the basics of how in just a couple lines of code we can instantiate something. And lastly, you know, we just need our submit button. So we're going to submit, and on click, we are going to update the proxy state, right? So this is how we update our proxy state. We're going to take our chat store, or it's just store. This is arbitrary. You can make this a different variable, and usually what I like to do is, all right, we're storing all this in an object, right? Which is in YJS land, we're calling it a map. You're basically, most of the time, like what I like to do is I'm my key value pairs in that object. The keys are just going to be the various users, right? And then they're going to have their own kind of basic state. And I guess I'll show that a little more in an example. But for right now, right, we're just going to call this button, just to show that it works, right? And we are going to, when we press the button, I love emojis, right? I like to just use emojis when I'm just trying to prototype something, right? I find it's pretty fun to just like grab, like, these are like my little basic emojis. So I always just try to like, I just use these and see if they pop up, right? So boom, here we go. We have, this is it. This is literally it. This is the moment of truth now. So I'm gonna pop this out. You know what I mean? We're gonna go over here. We're gonna set our local host up, 3000. And over here, we're gonna put the inspector up, covering my face, my bad. All right, and this inspector is tied to over here. So if we recall correctly, just real fast, our console log is gonna change. Our console log is gonna fire as soon as the snapshot updates. So if we did this correctly, which I'm fairly certain we did, when I type in something over here, oh, did I do this right? Yeah, I did do this right. So whatever, okay, I actually messed the explanation up. I'm sorry. Okay, remember when I put button right here? Button is what we tied to our input. So whatever the value of this is, we're gonna basically, this is essentially like if you were to give the users a username that they could set up, right? They would just, that would just kind of pop up right there. So right now it fired initially and we have nothing. This is just like our target object, nothing really going on there. But check this out, moment of truth, the magic of YJS and Valtio. I can't wait. We're just gonna say test 2 right here. And when I hit submit, again, this is tied over here. This is an independent user's browser somewhere else, right? And this is me updating it over here. When I hit submit, oh shit, did that work? Oh wow, it didn't work. Okay, the only other thing I could think is maybe we already muddied our test value here. There it is, there it is. Okay, my bad. I'm probably just gonna edit the video. So this is empty. I had, this happens sometimes and you just gotta pay attention to it. I had already mutated some of the state in our test 2 value, so it was a little messed up. All right, now I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if I hit submit now, boom, there it is. Okay, I'm just gonna edit the video so you guys don't see that. But there we go. As you can see, when I make an update over here, it updates in real time over here. And so we can leverage this in a lot of ways. Again, I just wanted to, and I put this on my GitHub, of course, and link it in the description. But you know, this has a ton of like real applications because again, it's instantaneous shared state. So any kind of game you want to do, or just kind of shared collaborative state, if you want to do some kind of like shared editor, something like that, it's pretty cool. So there's only 2 more things I really want to show you guys. I'm going to try to do them really quickly because I hate long videos and I don't want to make a long video. There is an event that fires that took me forever to learn about, but it's very useful, and it is called, what is it called? Provider.on. So what we can do with provider.on is we can listen for an event called peers. Did I do that right? Yes. And when that event occurs, we can fire an event. And what we're going to do right now is just console.log that event. And this is a useful piece of code because a lot of times you have to do cleanup. Actually, the error that happened earlier was because I hadn't set the cleanup up yet. Because what happens is when people come in and out, you need to be able to manage the state when they come in and out to keep your global state clean. But what's cool about this is, again, I'm gonna come back here. Don't worry about that error. Yeah, see, this is the same thing. So I'm just gonna make this test 3 now. There's better ways to prototype this. I'm just trying to, you know, move quickly here. If I make another one, and I go to localhost 3000, I get these updates, right, that show me who was added, right, and their unique identifier. And then if I were to leave, I get another update that says, hey, somebody left, and then we can see who got removed. And you can use that to manage who is and is not in your app. So those are the basics. Again, I'm going to put all this on my GitHub so you can look at it. The last thing I want to show you guys, because I think it's pretty cool, is the app I built with this. If I can find it quickly, which I'm pretty sure I can. Excuse how ugly. Right, and I'm going to submit. And then boom, here's my little avatar guy, and I can walk around. And then what's cool is if I make another one called test 2, I'm going to have to do some edits on this video. I'm really upset. Let me just shrink it so you can see me. Look, here's my first guy, and here's my second guy. Because of the YJS, I can just like have shared state. It's real-time updates, my turns and all that. I'm like moving around over here. If I go to this one and I walk behind him, like there he is. So, you know, if you want to make a game with real-time shared state, you know, it's really not that hard. It's a couple lines of code, but you can do this kind of stuff. I built an app similar to this where I put I tap into your webcam in the WebRTC and I show your like webcam over the shoulder, so you can do like kind of 3D video chat. But again, this is all YJS. It's like the same implementation. All I'm doing is when I move, I'm using WASD here. Like when I move, I'm updating the position, and that position is just getting stored in the global state, and it updates instantaneously. So all the browsers are connecting, telling everybody where they're at. So I'm gonna stop the video there. Hey everybody, thanks so much for watching my channel. I hope it was informative and you learned a little bit. Looking forward to doing some more web development content for you guys in the new year. You know, if you have any suggestions, anything you want to see, just let me know in the comments. But yeah, excited to keep doing this, and hope you guys had some fun.